Sean, how are you? Hello?
Are you there, John Haskell? Yeah. Voila. Can you hear me, John Haskell? I can't hear you. I guess I need to turn my sound up.
Thing going again.
We're going to go to there. Now, can everybody see all you need to be in the cow business is a cow?
Yep.
Good. I want you to realize, everybody, I just prepared this just for you. Personally, for every one of you personally.
And if you believe that,
Yep.
there's a bridge somewhere in Oklahoma he will sell you. It's the
Yep.
bridge for the railroad tracks in Claremore. That's the one you're
Yep.
selling. All right. Do you want to do an introduction to this? Do you want me to do an introduction? We're gonna do two presentations here, I think, is what we're gearing up to.
Okay, who do you want to do yours first?
No, go ahead. So let me introduce the topic, though, if that's all right. Okay, so
That's
welcome everyone. Glad you could come. I am actually super excited about today's topic. We have been working for a couple of months now through the trading account and what drives your gross product. We have talked about transfers between enterprises. We've talked about inventory value. We have touched a little bit on revenue and purchases. We are going to focus today on the revenue and purchase side a lot more, and we are going to focus on breeding enterprises. So I'm going to talk a lot about, and I have a warning for you about this later, and as a reminder, we're going to talk a lot about cows specifically, and we're going to use the word cows. But all of the same principles apply to sheep, to llamas, to dogs, to horses, whatever it is you breed. When we have a breeding herd, the fundamentals of replacement are important. Cow replacement, or ewe replacement, as many of you have heard, is one very large cost in our business on average. $200 is often cited as an excellent benchmark number for cow replacement. If you are beating $200 per cow, you're doing fairly well. I would like to absolutely stomp on that benchmark and go to some very different places with it. And I think Wally's going to help me do that here at the beginning. So let's get rolling.
You ready to go?
I'm ready.
Very good. And one thing you need to understand, everybody understand is the market is very, very high, but we don't know if it's too high. I mean, it's just the relationships of the market, but you need to be preparing yourself to get ready for the slide down the other side. So let's talk about that. So that's what we're going to do. There's my disclaimer, is I'm not responsible for nothing, basically what it says. But here's a take-home thoughts. To succeed at this, you need to understand sales by marketing, and you need to learn to only deal with today. You readjust daily and stuff, and understand this is a people business, and and then keep the business close to the cow. And what I'm talking about there is cows in this context creates your cash flow. Pickup trucks, unless you haul cattle, does not create cash flow. All the other stuff does not create cash flow. So keep as much of your capital invested in whatever creates cash flow. And like Walt Davis says, ranching, all ranching is rainfall, sunshine, and management. And then I've learned so much from Bud Williams. This is one of the most important one is most people have the will to win, but very few people have the will to prepare to win. And this is one thing I learned from him. I am continually preparing and stuff. And so here is, this is from Cattle Facts and USDA. If you look here, we have got good times ahead of us. You understand what I'm saying? It isn't going to get any better than this, you know. I was just talking to a gentleman today that he sold a a truckload of pears for $3,900. They were first calf heifers and stuff. So it's just not going to get any better than this until you look at this one. And the talking heads were basically back in 14, 15 saying the same thing that they're saying today, that, you know, the cow herd, just because of physiology and stuff, cannot expand, you know, so we've got 2 or 3, 4 more good years and stuff. And they were saying that in the last cycle. And if you look, I mean, it went off the cliff in 16 and stuff. So you need to be aware of that. And what you need to really be focused on is how you can operate between the 2 yellow lines. The 2 yellow lines is break even, basically, or the, you know, it's 165 or $165 a hundredweight for a steer. That's $825 on 500-pound steer. So this is one number you need to be focused on. And then when these things happen, you build your working capital and create wealth and stuff. So any questions up to now?
Why about 165?
What was that? If not, we'll move forward.
Roll on.
And yes.
Keep going.
Okay. And all we're talking about here is working with relationships. And relationships looking forward, not backwards. And I will point this out here in just another slide. But always be looking forward. You know, whatever you paid for an animal doesn't matter. The gentleman that just bought those $33,900 heifers he does not need to even think about that again, because it's sunk money and it's done. He's did it. And then also the relationships between classes of animals, and then the relationships between costs and what it costs you to do stuff. And those are basically the 3 areas that you need to be thinking about relationships. And this is what I did in 2014, the last high, when working moving the price down. And what we're doing is we're just looking at the relationship between what I want to sell and what I want to buy back. And I want to stay in business, so I need to maintain my inventory. And so I sold some 4- and 5-year-old cows with month-old calves for $2,900. They range from $2,200 to $3,500, but that's what the average on them was. And a heifer calf at that time was $1,200, and at that time we could develop a heifer for $365 or $1 a day, so it's $1,565. And this is what the trade looked like. You know, we sold a cow and a calf, a month-old calf. We kept a heifer and put the money to get her into being and $1,335. And then you move forward in 15, we had the same. I sold the cows for $700 less, and that was because of poorer marketing than the market going down. Because see, the heifer calf was only at $5 cheaper, but it still was a good trade because we had the bred heifer and picked up $640 in cash. So as we do this, you know, and so here The next in 2016, all you could get out of a bred heifer at that time was $1,600, and if you had $1,560 in it, you know, there's no way in hell anybody would sell that heifer, because you know you just lock up. That's looking back, but what you needed to be doing is looking forward. And at that time, heifer calves were only bringing in $685. So in other words, you put $365. Now we have $1,050 bred heifer, and you sell the $1,600 bred heifer, and you still pick up $550 in cash. So in one of the biggest crises of the cattle market, I came through it with, I had a bred heifer for $1,500 in cash of $2,525. So if I would want to expand my herd with this cash down here, I could do it. You know, I could basically buy two bred heifers, or develop two bred heifers. So now, is there any questions? I can't believe that Eric Mose is on here and not asking questions. I just can't handle that. Here we go. But one of the big things you need to understand is the intrinsic value of a cow, or intrinsic value. And the intrinsic value is a way of describing the perceived or the true value of an asset. This is not always identical with the current market price, because of assets can be over and undervalued. So this is how you figure an intrinsic value on a cow. Is, in this case right now, cows are selling for basically $1 and a dime. So a 1,200-pound cow is worth $1,320. A 500-pound calf's worth $3. And so it comes to $2,820, but they all don't produce or survive. So I use a factor of 0.95. I say that 5% of the income is just going away. So it's $2,679. And you subtract the cost to carry, in this case, $2 a day, basically. And so the intrinsic value of a cow is $1,956.
And it's important to point out that the intrinsic value, as it's calculated this way, is given all the today's market information, is basically the break even, right?
Yep. Well, it tells you, well, basically it just tells you what the value of this animal is.
Correct.
And stuff. So where you use that is, there's a wonderful example, but we're going to talk about Kim's cows. Kim Barker helps me with my marketing schools, and in November, Kim said you can buy nice bred cows out of eastern Kansas for $1,342. So by knowing the intrinsic value of that cow at $1,900 and something dollars, basically it's saying this cow is undervalued by $600. So she's a good buy. And so he bought some. And so we troop on down through here. And so he had, at this point when he sold some, he had $1,615 in them. He sold the cows, set of cows, for an average of $2,547. You subtract $1,615, that's $932. He had those cows for 90 days. And so in other words, he had a 57% return on his capital in 90 days. And if you turn them over, 90 days, you can do 4 turnovers in a year. So it'd be, in theory, he could do 228% return. Any questions at this point?
Well,
And-
where was he doing that?
Yes? What's that?
Where was he doing that?
He did basically what he did is he bought these cows out of eastern Kansas because they were in a drought and running out of water. And he took them out to western Oklahoma and put them on some cane feed and grazed them. And then it's rained out there. And so the demand for cows is really perked up. And so he sold them, some of them.
And Wale, this is not a one-off example. We know multiple people that have done something that looks almost exactly like this over the same time period, correct?
Yep, correct. Well, I even did it. I didn't do it near as good as him, but I did it well enough, Yep. And you say, well, yeah, but how, he, this return and, this, but Kim, when he sold these cows, he bought cows back for just a little bit more than this. And so, he will get, sure enough, 2 turns out of his money this year. Any questions up to now? Forward ho. And so this is yes.
Wally, I'm sorry. I do have a question about the turns. So you said that you could do up to 228%. Now the turn, does that refer to taking the money made from the first batch, putting it back into getting more?
Yes, what I'm talking about is, okay, we sold these animals, that's turn 1, and we picked up 57%. Okay, but we only used the money for 90 days. If you divide 90 days into 365, you have the ability to turn it 4 times.
Perfect. Thank you.
And if you did nothing other than leave that money set, a 57% annual return is pretty damn good. But if you did it twice, you're over 100%.
There's a lot of places that you can, park it for 10% real easily, and stuff. So
For 270 days.
Yeah. Has anybody got any other questions on terms and stuff? Okay, moving forward. And to me, you're in the cow-calf business. This next couple slides are as important as they get. And this is my brother-in-law managed the ranch for years. He retired, the ranch sold, and they sold all the cows off of that ranch in one day. So it gives you an example of, the value of each age group of cows. And when you're working with your inventories, to me, you need to be have your inventory broke down by ages and stuff. Because, on banks, it's just cows. On ranching for profit, it's just cows, correct, Jordan? I mean, when you're doing most stuff. I guess he's sleeping some. But and what
He didn't get a nap like you did today.
Yeah, I know. But I deserve my naps. I've earned my naps. So
No, but where's my mouse? I'm watching his mouse.
There he is. He's
Jordan.
back. Hey, Jordan.
Oh,
back,
there you
back to you.
Where is your mouse? You
Back
gotta
to
give him a
you.
pink eye. Be nice to him.
This, so what this is telling you here is that if you kept this 550-pound calf at this value, and to turn her into a bred heifer at this value, you had $961 of appreciation. And so the big question there is, can you do that for that? That's the question. And moving forward, the 2-year-old cows went up a little bit in value, and they also gave you a calf And the 3-year-old cow did the same, and 4-year-old cow did the same, went up a little in value. But when you hit the 5-year-old cow, she depreciated by $122. And so that calf that sells for $850 really only has a value to you of $728 because to cover the $122. Or in other words, 14.3% of the calf income is ate up by depreciation. And the big thing here is the reason nobody tracks this, and so it just, one of the biggest costs in the cow herd is just nobody knows what's going on, in my humble opinion. And you just keep.
And I want to make sure that we're very clear when we are talking about depreciation here, we are talking about a real loss in value. We are not talking about tax depreciation. So this is the real market value of that cow.
There's
So-
a question about the depreciation on these cows. So they lose value because if you were to sell her at an older age, buyers would be less interested. But does it
Yes.
lose value if you don't sell her and she continues to produce a viable calf?
If we
Well,
believe that we value our herd at market value, then yes,
Okay.
she loses
Okay.
real economic value. You may not turn it into cash because you may not sell her, but the
Mhm.
loss of value still happens.
Gotcha. Perfect.
And when we look at the life cycle of a whole herd, right, assuming a reasonable turnover rate of the entire herd, that loss is happening in most. And what Wally's saying is people aren't seeing it because it's like wrapped up in all of the herd costs.
And nobody
Yes.
measures it.
And I'll go through that in a little more detail here in a minute.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
And so we just keep trooping down, and if you keep them till a cold cow, in this case, it basically eat up half your calf. So if you add this on to what it costs you to run a cow, it didn't make much sense. And this is it's grafted out here. And they go up in value and they go in and they drop off. And the reason the cow and I'd love to debate this, in my humble opinion, the reason the cow calf business is basically break even is because of this. We do not ever capture that. And this is the value of the calves here, and this is the line that how depreciation eats up the value of the calves. And so, working through this is the cow bell curve or the cow value curve that I guess I'm going to have to change it to.
You just need to put an E on the end of bell and a hyphen between cowbell.
Okay, we'll think about that. But basically what this is what I do is to track what's undervalued and overvalued. And in this case, I'm using my brother-in-law's cow herd, that what we just went through. And the heifer calf is worth $814. The bred cow is worth, the highest price bred cow is $853, and the cull cow is that. And so you work through here, and there's $1,039 of appreciation from the heifer calf, the most valuable cow. And then there is $1,138 of depreciation. And so, that is a huge amount of money that we work through and stuff. And you got to understand, doing these relationships, you've got to do the relationships, because just 60 days ago, bred cows weren't, well, depending on where you're at, weren't worth that much compared to the value of how high heifer calves and cull cows went. Now that's all changed now. And I haven't worked it out because I'm going to sell some cows on Saturday, and I'm going to put their value in here. But right here, see this, I'm just amazed. It worked out that it's exactly you know, that. And so let's just, just for the fun of it, let's just do this. That gentleman sold those cows for $3,900. Come down here and you take 3,900 minus 1,485. Whoops. $2,415, and you come over to this side and you take 3,900. I'm a little slower, 1,485, and guess what that equals? $2,415. Shazam! I'm amazed myself. That is a tremendous amount of money that you have the ability to capture, you know, if you do it. Any questions on this point right here? This is where you really need to be building your working capital or whatever. I mean, you need to be capturing this appreciation and stuff.
I have a question, Wally.
Yes.
As far as inventory management in this system, to maintain just total cow herd numbers, do you need to buy heifers in to make this work? If you just did this, if this was your only gig, basically, selling 5-year-old cows, would you need to buy heifers in to make it work?
Well, you could, but one thing, you know, Josh, depending on, you need to adjust to make this really work. You need to adjust your genetics. I mean, you need to get, you know, easy keeping cows that will breed. You know, most people couldn't. This would be a lot without spending a whole lot of money. Would just be a disaster. And so, in other words, you know, I would say yes, you need to be buying in some heifers, but for if no other reason, it's a really profitable enterprise right here. You understand what I'm trying to say? I mean,
Absolutely.
that is a phenomenal margin, you know. And basically, all you are right here is you're in the stocker's feeder heifer business and turn a bull out with them. You know.
Josh, I've run a couple of models on this. At the 5 to 6 year old cutoff, you can do it internally without a terrible strain. It doesn't hurt to buy heifers. When you go to a shorter period, like you go down to a 4 to 5 year old cull age, then you really have to buy heifers.
Okay, that's what I always wondered about. So that makes sense.
So, and I play with those assumptions. Sometimes we're shooting for like a 50% breed up on heifers. Sometimes we're shooting for a 70. You know, we're following the Burke-Teichert model of expose all of them, let nature pick, and then depending on how aggressive you want to be there, and how heavily you cull, particularly 3-year-olds. If you can get 3-year-olds bred effectively, and you can go with a little higher heifer preg rate, you can make this work 100% internal.
And one thing, as you get your, you know, put pressure on the heifers that you're breeding for the first time, you put pressure on them and you will get along really good getting them rebred back, I have found. You know.
Yep.
Thanks.
And to me, you know, you have to decide why you're ranching. I mean, if you're ranching to raise a super duper cow herd, or you're doing it to make money, you know, and you know, there's lots of skills. You know, to me, I'm going to get lambasting most people, but you know, most people in ranching only have one skill: to be cow calf ranchers. You know, and you need to diversify your skill level so you can diversify what you can handle. and stuff, so. Now that I got that out of my system, I'll have a good evening.
Hey, let me go back just a bit on that, because I think if you see this system as in any way in opposition to quality, I think you're absolutely incorrect. I think this can be done for low quality, but when you talk about making genetic improvement and you're not relying on the genes of 15-year-old cows to drive your herd forward, you are actually accelerating improvement. Now, you can also be accelerating bad things if you're not paying attention. But if you are doing this correctly with a reasonably conservative approach to, sort of selecting for the most important things like fertility, doability, however you define it, I think this is a path to a super high quality herd in a very short period of time.
Can I
Sure.
talk now, Wally?
Yeah, please.
I was wrestling with a kid for the mouse when you were asking me earlier. So yeah, at the school, we just have, like in the book, we just have H1s, H2s, and then the cow category. When we sit down with people, I encourage people to at least do your replacements, your bred heifers, and then young, middle, and old age cows, at least to get that cow bell curve. We talk about, then we go into the cow bell curve too. The only thing I think I'd add from what you have here is this depreciation that you're looking at here of $2,400 per cow. The part that blows most people away too is when you think that most cows only produce 3 or 4 calves in their lifetime, then that's $600 to $800 per cow that you're actually losing. So the high market, you lose more money per year on your average cow.
And one thing though, with that said, you got to manage herd fallout, and if that cow falls out at 3 years old or 4 years old, you can rebreed her and salvage most of that.
That's right.
And stuff. And some people will say, well, God, you're the greatest sinner rebreeding the cow. And my deal is okay, these cows are, they're up for sale, and this is what they are, and it's your choice to buy them, or not. Because an open cow will very seldom ever come up open again in her life. So, any other input? That was very good, Jordan. But what I want to get through to people is we are in the time to be building your working capital or net worth or whatever you want to call it. This is the time to be building it. I mean, to me, the cattle business has quantum leaps in it, and this is one of them, and you need to capture it.
So Wally, that was a good joke about the open cow there, but that is really what I struggle with, because down here in Georgia, our average herd size, I think it's like 30 animals or something like that. And so a lot of times when you go to the sale barn, animals that are coming in really are there for a reason, and especially the cows. And so how do you suggest, if I were to try to go and look at opportunities on Wednesday, when our sales are, do I look for a cow that has been sleeved and she just isn't in great condition, or do I completely avoid the opens?
Right. One thing that I love about a cow is there's 2 ways that you can make money on cows, and that's one, and the other is there's 3 ways, I guess: gaining weight, getting further into pregnancy, and then producing a calf. And so when you go to the sale, if there is a young, very thin cow that is in first or second stage, you could buy her and take her home and get her fat, number one, and move her from first and second to third. That's another price point. Or she could raise a calf for you, so.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, and here
one
we have
thing-
a lot.
And you live in a wonderful place to do that. I mean.
Yeah, yes, we do. We also have a lot of people who are backyard cattle farmers, and they
Yep.
overgraze tremendously. And then, so there's no grass in a lot of these pastures, but then people have skinny cows, and so that, like you say, would be a good opportunity to take a skinny one.
That's
But
correct. Any other questions?
Great stuff.
Down the road we go. Okay, this is my I have one brother-in-law that I've got how many brother-in-laws do I have? I have got three right at present, and he was a conventional rancher, and he all of a sudden drank the Kool-Aid on speeding up the turnover in his cow herd. And so this is his conventional way of doing things. He had basically $500,000, and he changed over to keeping his heifer and selling 5-year-old cows, and it changed his, basically by $27,000. But what was here, and this is something to me that's really interesting. This is his sales from the conventional cow herd, and it was the average animal sold for $823. Move over here, and he's down 6 animals, but he has increased his sales to $1,290. In other words, he changed his net worth by 6%, but he changed his sales by 44%. To me, that is really big stuff, and people, when I talk about, 44%, 50% change, people can't even grasp that because they've had drilled in their head 1% and 2% and 3%, and they just can't grasp it, and stuff. So, Any other questions or thoughts here? Now, one thing, when you're doing this, you do not create a recipe and say, I'm going to sell 5-year-old cows. You always do the relationships of what the market is and stuff. And on calves, basically what we're doing here is doing a cattle square. What we're doing is comparing this 350-pound calf to this 400-pound calf, and there's $72 difference. So in other words, you divide 50 pounds into $72, and it's $1.44 value of gain. And you just keep working down through here. And when you went from 550 or 500 to 550, the market took away $39. And what was interesting, you chug along, clear up to 700 pounds, putting another 200 pounds. You never got back to what the 500 pounders worth. So you need to always be doing, the value of gain that you're putting on an animal. And so this is from last Monday at Tulsa. And number one steers, a 550-pound steer sold for $3.25 a pound, or $1,787. A 300-pound calf sold for $4 a pound, or $1,200. You work through that, it's 250 pounds of gain, $587 of value, and you divide the value by the gain, you come to 234, which is a very good value of gain. And if you did it like most people, did, you know, if you compare the 750-pound steers to the 500-pound steers, because everybody's buying 500-pound steers right now to go to grass because they're the ones that do best on grass. And you work through that, you got $150 margin, and that's 150 divided by 250 pounds is only 60 cents value again. So in other words, the feed or whatever, your effort and everything you put into this one was worth a whole lot less than this one. And what was interesting is if you kept the 750 pounder at 239, you could go to the LRP, Livestock Risk Protection Program, and lock in $2.52 of value. And so in other words, you got 250 pounds of gain, you come up with $728 in margin, you divide that, and it comes to $2.91. And at this time of year, you will have, you know, in this scenario here, you will have maybe $175 in costs. These big steers are healthy. You could buy them, implant them, brand them, you know, do whatever you want to do with them, turn them out on grass, you know. And now what, bear in mind that you have to subtract from this $728, it costs you $64 a head to lock it in, but let's just go down here and we'll, oh, that ain't what I wanted to do. Text, go down here. And we put in 64. So you take 728 minus $64, that's $664, and you take the 17, or just a second, 664 divided by 1792 equals 37% on your money is what you would be making on this trade, and you would be almost guaranteeing you know, your income. And you're now down to a 100-day deal, so you can turn that money over 3 times in the year. Is there any questions on that? And one thing I want people to understand about why I'm so adamant on turns and turnover. Okay, turnover in family living, if it takes $70,000 to live, and you can make $100 a head, if you turn them over once a year, that is 700 head of cattle and $840,000. If you turn them over twice a year, you know, that's only $350 and $420,000. You know, turnover is critical in getting it down to where, you know, if you have the ability to turn them over 4 times a year, you know, you're only talking about 175 cattle, you know, and $210,000 worth of money. You know, it's you know, to me, turnover is a critical thing to understand and stuff. Okay, that's the end of
And,
that.
hey, let me add to that real quickly, because we have seen a number of times where people have needed to or wanted to increase their income. The recommendation they have received was that they need to invest more capital, okay, and generally in most cases borrow more money to generate, you know, to increase turnover at the same relatively low profit margin.
Correct.
And in those cases, we have recommended something different than that, and been able to run a few of those scenarios kind of side by side, where, okay, if we had increased the number of cows, we had increased the debt load, what would have played out, and when we didn't do that, what played out. And I think it's very important that, especially in front of a potential market drop, if you have leveraged a bunch of cows and increased all your operating expenses accordingly, you take huge risk when there is market change. And I know we've had a number of customers who have been very thankful that we have advised against that when the market is high, because it's easy to increase your herd size at the bank when the market is high, but they also get pretty touchy right after the market drops, and it gets really hard to actually generate the profit margins that are required to pay back the debt and to pay all of the additional expenses when the market drops. Whereas this way, when the market drops, you're generally in a very safe position.
That's correct. And understand, be constantly aware of getting high margins in your business. And so.
So
Any other
if you're
question?
if you're in cow calf, you're basically one turn.
If
Like
you are-
calve.
Well, if you are in cow calf, you are in theory one turn, but there's lots of stuff you can do to really ramp up your gross margins in your cow herd by not allowing the depreciation, capturing as much appreciation as you can in the cow herd, and mitigating your depreciation. Theory, Kim Barker is in the cow calf business, and he made 57%. He's
true.
got cows, and he's
In 90 days.
in 90 days. So like I said, we got there's lots of people that think I'm Lucifer from hell coming back when I talk about what I talk about. There's just sacrilegious and everything. You can have a very good cow calf program, and you put good marketing in it, just like my brother-in-law, and you can ramp that sucker up 44% over somebody else.
This doesn't
So-
necessarily prove that you're not Lucifer incarnate. It just means it's probably not for this.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah. So,
There would be other reasons. Hannah, did you have something? I see your mic's off.
Yeah, I just, so it's like back to like Josh was saying, if you're doing it internally and you said you'll rebreed a cow, how about a heifer? So if you're getting 70% breed up on your heifers.
on the first calf, or on H1s or heifers that were breeding for the first time, I like to sell them. One is for cash flow reasons, because you're always looking for cash flow, and they have really good value. Like I tell you, you need to run your that part of it like the stocker business. You run them so you can make a profit on feeder heifers, and then the bred heifers that come out of it are just gravy.
Okay, so even in this market, you would still say you're going to sell your.
I would still sell if for the first time, because she's got problems, and for some reason she didn't breed, and so just move her, cash her in, and go. You could probably go buy you another heifer to run and stuff.
Can I share a quick spreadsheet to answer Josh and Hannah's question?
I'm done. So if
Oh,
you
perfect.
get rid of me,
All right.
because I'm
Well,
not
then
going
this
to
will
go
be our.
into the who, not the how.
Okay, good. This will take us into our second presentation today. Josh and Hannah and others of you that are wondering, while Wally was talking, I put together a quick model here that is essentially a cow herd. This is a Wally Olson style cow herd. As he said, this is not a 5 and out program. This is some version of watching that cow bell curve and trying not to fall off the far side. I've just used 5 years as an example. So you'll hear that spoken of often. Don't get trapped in that deal. But what I've got here is there are two ways to look at this. If I look at a simple age you know, what happens to individual cows. So if I start with 100 cows and I assume that, you know, calves, 100% of them come into the herd, and then 95% of my, you know, H1s, H2s, et cetera, we can play with these replacement rates, right? After 17 years, if I have this kind of retention, I wind up with 1 cow left. And I cut it off at 1 because it goes, there are a lot of, when you're dividing by 50%, right, or dividing by half, right, that takes forever to actually get to 0. But if you just take a cow herd and say, all right, I'm going to start with a cohort from 1 to 5. I'm going to start with 100 H1s, 70 H2s, 56 H3s, 50 H4s, and 45 5s. Okay. Each of those has a chance that they're going to go into the next group. Okay. So this is often correlated. This is your preg rate minus whatever your additional culls might be. Okay. And so if I retain 70% of those heifers, then I start with 100, right? Then now I have 70 H2s, and then I keep 8. I assume this is a fairly low breed up here. This depends on your part of the world. And then after we're a confirmed bred 3-year-old that calves out, generally they go stable from, let's say, 5, you know, up to 8 years old. But if I do this, that means that if I have a weaning rate that matches my preg rate, and yours may be better, yours may be worse, I just assumed equal for now. Usually what I see is in older cows, they match. In your younger cows, they don't match. Your weaning rate is higher, but take it for what it is. What we wind up with is this is the crop of calves that then produces this, you know, these are the H0s, if you will, that then produce this crop of H1s. And what you see year 1, this is again a herd that caps out at 5 years old. This is 50% of this total. So I'm assuming half your calves are heifers, okay, which is not always correct, but it's usually not terribly wrong. And what we see is year 1, we start with 222. Year 2, we're at 222. Year 3, we get a bit of a dip. This should be year 4. Year 4, it comes back, but your herd size is basically stable within some reasonable error variation. You can cut this down to 50%. And I'm going to warn you, there are a number of things that are going to change here because I've got this built sort of 2 ways. But let's say you keep 50% of your calves. Again, you have the opportunity to keep this thing. It's reasonably stable, but here you're definitely going to wind up adding calves later on. If you get it in the 60% range, again, reasonably stable, but you would add some outside heifers. I can take this back to 70%, and I can make this 80% breed up on my second pregnancy, right? But I can have a 90% calf crop, excuse me. And I don't have this one coded, but again, then that gets you to numbers that are pretty stable. Questions about that? And it's not that hard to do. A 70% breed up on heifers is, I mean, you know, this is what we're trying for in a 30-day breeding window with like a 1 to 50 bull count. No? Okay, awesome. Then I'm going to switch over here. We're going to go to the second part of our presentation. And I'm debating whether or not this is a good idea to start another piece. Maybe we should do this next time. Do we want to go on? I got about 30 minutes worth of stuff. Do we want to go on? Do we want to stop here?
I say go for it.
Yeah, I just finally got off my other call, so you know I'm good to go.
Perfect. All right. All right. Well, you're welcome to drop off. There will be a recording. I may break the recording in 2 pieces. We'll see. All right. So here's where we're going to go next. I'm going to formalize a little bit about what are we talking about when we talk about cow replacement costs. Give me just a second to get this so it shows up right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we've talked a lot about gross product. This herd replacement deal is a big deal. I'm going to start opposite of where Wally started. I'm going to start from a a buy-sell context. And I want to make sure that's clear. So most importantly, we've talked about our gross product now for a couple months in a row. I can't emphasize enough. The understanding the economic value of your production is insanely important. There are, hang on a second. Did I miss one here? Nope, that's right. We have three major pieces of our profit equation. Okay. They are the gross product, which we talk about a lot. We've been talking about for a couple of months. We are going to continue talking about it. I feel like this is a grossly neglected topic for conversation. If you haven't understood that already. Direct costs, we get a lot of talk about that in ranching for profit and HMI circles, HRM circles. Those direct costs, in case you don't remember, those are the ones that change with the number of units. So if you run one more cow, the cost goes up. Overheads are those relatively fixed costs where if I go from 100 to 101 cows, the cost doesn't really change. So for example, I don't need to hire a new person if I add one more cow. And we're assuming that those are fixed over reasonable ranges. So let's say from 100 to 400 cows, that cost might be fixed. From 500 to 1,000 cows, that cost may be fixed. Those numbers are going to be different everywhere, but they're reasonably similar. We need to reemphasize that debt service is not included in profit. Okay, debt service is an after profit payment, and profit and cash flow are not the same things. I think we've talked about that in a few other places. Those are things we will continue to revisit. Gross product, to be clear, is the economic value produced. That is not cash. We count that production whether you sell it, transfer it, or hold it. Now, in Wally's example, we talk a lot about retaining heifers. Retaining heifers increases the value of your herd. It does not put any money in your pocket and often takes money out, right? Because you gotta keep that sucker alive. You gotta feed her, you gotta give her shots, etc. Gross product helps us to remember what I call silent thieves. Depreciation, as an example, is a silent thief. Danny, your question is an excellent one because, as you said, what if you don't actually pay any cost? What if you don't sell them and you get another calf? Yes, you do get another calf, and you don't write a check for depreciation, but it is stealing from that calf's value. And finally, that we need to make sure that we understand that gross product and revenue are not the same. Revenue actually is the cash you get for the things you sell or the services you provide. This is the basic equation. I've shared this in each of the presentations we've talked about here recently. We start with a closing in, or I do this opposite. So I start at the bottom and begin with a negative opening inventory. We subtract purchases, we subtract transfers into the enterprise. Those are all costs. And then we have things that are, or debits, if you will. And then we have credits, which are transfers out, sales, and closing inventory. And when we add all of those together, we get the gross product. Any questions to there? Feel free to back me up if we need to. We've talked about this a few times. What are the reasons for a low gross product? Please volunteer. There are going to be three parts of this that are participatory. You have to participate. What is the reason your gross product might be low, Samantha? Samantha might be away from the phone. Oh, there she is.
Low breed up.
Oh, it's Jake. Right. Good. Who's TOH? Oh, Tyson Han. Tyson, what's the reason for a low gross product?
Yep, low breed up.
You said that. All right, Samantha,
Yep.
What did you say? Sorry, I thought you were Jake.
Oh, I said I'm not sure at the moment.
Okay, that works. Rick? Rick Stevens, are you out there? Fumbling for his mute button. Eric, you got any?
Mortality.
Okay. What else? Wally talks about it all the time.
Bad marketing.
Bad marketing. There you go, Daniel. Good job. Perfect. All right. So we've talked about this before. Marketing, markets. You can have overvalued inventory. Oops, I'm sorry. Whoops. Hang on, let's get this thing. Where are we at? Okay, we can have overvalued inventory. We have high replacement costs. We haven't talked about this yet, so this is today's topic. And then we talked last time about inappropriate transfers, inappropriate valuations of your transfer. All right, so we're going to dive into this. I mentioned this before. I'm going to say cows a lot today. I just mean breeding animals. Cows is just what I often think the most about. All right, animal performance, as we talked about, can have huge, powerful influence on our economics. We often want to avoid extremes, right? Preg rates, weaning rates that are too high are generally too expensive, but preg rates and weaning rates that are low also cost us a lot of money. Culling, and I'm going to use that term broadly right now, has a huge impact. Replacement is a very, very important cost, and it's a very important part of that trading account because it affects both the purchases and the revenue side. It is strongly linked to depreciation, and our strategy, or our strategy for managing our herd, for managing our inventory, really matters. I mentioned earlier that $200 per cow is considered a good replacement cost. That's a benchmark I hear all the time. We see numbers that are anywhere from double that negative to the same number positive. So it can go from negative $250 to $400 to positive $200. I'll show you a few examples of that. And I'm going to use, for sake of argument here today, we're going to just talk about buying our replacements, or act as though we are buying our replacements. It is no different if you are keeping them. So Danny, again, in response to your question, one of the places where we hide the cost of depreciation is that we keep replacements for no cost, right? They're free. We know they're not free. We know they have an economic value. We know we have to include that if we're being honest with ourselves. And we're going to always go back to Bud's rule that if we don't sell something, we are choosing to buy it. So if I think something is overpriced today and I don't sell it, I have purchased it. Questions about that? Awesome. Okay, we're going to make a few other things. We're going to learn how to calculate this replacement cost. If we keep the herd the same size, we must buy or keep a replacement for every cull or dead or otherwise missing animal that is not at our herd. So if we're going to have 100 head herd and we come into the end of the year with 98 living and we want to cull 20, we got to buy 22 cows to replace those. And again, buy or keep. Changing a herd size adds a little bit of complexity to this, and it makes the calculations a little more difficult, but it does not change the basic underlying process. Remember always that deads generate no revenue. Most of the time we assume, what most people I see do their replacement calculations, they leave deads out entirely. And if we are culling any kind of older, lame, open, blind, cancer eye, no tail, bad titted, etc. type of undesirable cow, we are almost always selling that cow for less than what it costs us to replace her. That's why the normal situation is negative $200. And then we're going to look at what do some of the best cases look like. So here I've got some math for you. There's I forgot to get my Jeopardy music today. I would like you to this is a cow herd where we have left out all of the proceeds from calves. So we are focused only on cows here. What is our gross product? Come on, Jordan. Don't be afraid to be a math nerd. Daniel,
$20,000.
It's what? Negative 20,000?
Minus 20,000.
Very good. And then that means in this case that our replacement cost per head is that negative 20,000 divided by 100. Does everybody understand how he got that? So he just added up this rightmost column. Okay, so negative 200,000 plus 20,000 is negative 180. Minus 40,000 is negative 220, plus 200 gets us to negative 20. Do we agree on that? Okay, the transactions that have happened here are, like I say, I've left the calves completely out of the equation. All we've done is culled 20 cows, bought 20 cows. There's $1,000 differential between those two. That's cost us $20,000. When we divide that $20,000 by the herd size, then we get a $200 per cow replacement cost. I am curious. Now, this is just a generalized set of numbers. How many of you think these numbers are completely unreasonable? Have any of you sold a cull cow for less than $1,000?
Very definitely.
Wally has.
I've sold cull cows for $400, so you know.
What were cull cows when you started ranching, Wally?
What's
Oh,
that?
boy.
Well, when we started,
Oh, boy.
cull cows were basically $150 or so, and I remember selling lots of calves for a quarter a pound, and the heifers, the steers for a quarter a pound, and the heifers for 22 cents. And that was in 1974.
And there was a tremendous amount of appreciation between so I was born at a similar time to that. If you go forward 20 years at the beginning of my professional life, then there was a huge amount of appreciation there, because I certainly don't remember prices anywhere near that low.
But back to Jordan Steele, back to that. I also in that was in 74. That was after a huge break in the market. 5 years before that, I bought some bred heifers for $235, and rode them, you know, up and sold them, and I got like $900 for them, you know.
Yep.
So, you know, I was using the cyclone. I didn't have a clue. I just was needing money, you know.
Pays to be lucky sometimes.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to claim that these these numbers are reasonable, maybe even good. Okay. The other thing you'll notice here is that my average inventory value is exactly what I've been able to purchase replacements at. That often isn't the case. Here's another example. I've changed this. I've added 2 deads into the mix. Anybody want to calculate the gross product? Jordan's on the phone, so it's going to have to be somebody else.
Well, now it's 22,000, correct?
Correct, because
you got to realize this is awful late for Olson and
but you did get a nap today, so
yeah,
20 that is 22,000. My math is wrong. Sorry. So now we're at $220 ahead. Is there anything here that looks terribly unreasonable? Hey, Roni.
No.
Okay. Here's another scenario. Made 2 changes here. I really upped the value of my cull cows, right? So right now you can sell a 1,200-pound cull cow for $1.20 a pound if she's in good condition, but I'm going to make you pay more for the replacement. What do we have here? I hope I did the math right on this one, but I didn't. 18 times 1,400 is not 2,800. Man, who makes these slides?
And you are the bookkeeper.
Yeah,
I
have a degree in math. Keep that in mind.
I don't want to put any concern out there for everybody, but
it's 25,200 in case you're worried. This is why you don't edit slides last minute before the slideshow. Does anybody want to with $25,200 in that cull cow number, cull cow proceeds? Anybody want to recalculate that?
Then it'll be negative 15,000, right? In rough numbers.
I believe you're correct. And 2 times 2,400 is not
48,000.
40,000. Yeah, man, this is terrible. I'm sorry. I tried to do, yeah, there's 48,000. Okay, what's your number now, Jordan?
Minus 23,000, because it's 48 minus 25, right?
Okay, we're gonna just have to redo this. Tyson, I know you're watching, so please feel free. So we've got 200,000 minus 28,000 plus 40,000.
Leave that alone. Hey, leave it alone.
I'll adjust this later. Is this 12,000? Is that right, Tyson?
Well,
I can't get to Excel right now, which was my backup plan. No, I can't get it. Everybody get the idea? Even under the best case, in this way of going, replacement cost will eat you. All right, how hard?
Hey, John, just to back up there, quick question.
Yeah.
Like, I know this is super simplified, right? Because you're not taking into account herd expansion or contraction.
Correct.
Just to make it crystal clear for us non-math people, we're dividing that total by what inventory number, opening or closing?
I usually do it by the opening number.
Okay.
Does that make sense? But I
Yeah,
don't.
but so does
I
closing.
don't know if it matters a bunch. You probably ought to be doing it by some version of the average.
Yeah. Okay.
We good there?
Yeah.
Okay, so this should be negative 12,000, which would be 120 per herd, which is why I used 120 in this slide. How hard would you work to take $120 of direct costs out of your herd? So if hay is $100 a ton, that's 2 months worth of feeding. If hay is $240 a ton, let's assume that's 1 month of feeding. Is that something you would work at? Probably.
Yes.
Right? How many of us have so much margin that $200 in cost doesn't affect us, right? It's nobody. There are very few people that operate that can ignore $200 in cost. Remember, 3 biggest costs in ranching are often land, labor, and depreciation, not necessarily in that order. So we often hear that, oh, well, we should reduce our turnover rate, right? We should keep cows in the herd longer, right? And reduce our replacement. Well, I go back to that spreadsheet model I showed you. I don't really care how high your replacement rate is. There are so few cows that make it past 10 years old. It's almost a non-issue, right? It's a completely trivial number. And then Wally has shown us that there are some other options. We're going to go into that a little more. Most of us approach cow replacement reactively, meaning we wait until a cow becomes a cull cow before we get rid of her. My idea is that you should never sell a cull cow, or you should sell so few of them it's silly. 2 ranches up the road from me run about 10,000 head each. They should sell 2 semi-loads of cull cows a year. So cancer-eyed cows, bad bags, bad feet, something terrible has happened to them. They've eaten wire, whatever. But out of those 10,000 cows, a tiny percentage ought to be actual cull cows. We want to have a strategy that takes our sale cows out of the cull class and puts them into a high value class. A proactive strategy changes the economics dramatically. We've talked already about sell by within a cow herd. When we look across our practitioners, Wally is included in that work with Ranch Right, the consistently most profitable operations are doing sell by within a breeding context. So I often hear people that took the first time I heard Bud Williams teach this, the first time people hear Wally teach this, they hear Doug teach it, they hear Richard and Tina teach it, they all think, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can be a stocker trader and trade junky steers, through the sale barn. That is an absolute myth. That is a complete misinterpretation of anything that those guys teach. It is not correct, but it is often where people's mind goes first. They think, well, I'm a cow-calf guy. I'm interested in quality. I can't do that. Like, that is not what is required here. I just showed you a model whereby you can internally replace and sell everything 5 and above after weaning. If you did nothing other than reverse the general trend of selling undervalued stuff and buying overvalued stuff, you would make a huge difference. Now that sounds stupid, right? We all joke about buy high, sell low, right? But it really does make a difference. And the neat thing is we have, and what Wally just presented is a strategy and a way of knowing how what is overvalued and what is undervalued. That's the revolutionary part of what Bud really taught. Wally has taken that and gone much further with it within a breeding cow context with his cowbell curve, not the cow bell curve. But the cowbell curve gives us a good understanding of how the value changes through that cow's life cycle and with changes in the market. All right, let's go through this one. Let's say you work in Wally's context and your cull cows are in fact not cull cows, but they are prime of their life breeding animals. What is the gross product from this enterprise and what is the replacement cost per head? Oh my goodness, and the math here is bad again. What the hell? 20 times 3,000 is 60,000.
Did someone make this around April Fool's?
I made it earlier in the week, and then I went through and changed a bunch of stuff here just earlier today because I had these all filled in and then I wanted to make the blanks.
John,
but while I was doing it, I was like, oh, hey, there are a few other things. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. While they're whoever's running the calculator, so we just had with our county cattlemen's, we had a breeding, I'm not sure what he's like, a breeding expert come in from the University of Georgia. And I think he said that it takes 7 years for a cow to pay for herself. I could be wrong about that, but I think that was what he said. And then in addition to that, okay. And so then in addition to that, we're often taught through the university, things that I've gone to is that cull cows offer good cash flow. But when you say don't sell,
Okay.
I know, I'm sorry.
It's awesome.
I know,
it's all right. It's good.
I
love
agree. Like, I love the university, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's more theory than actually, boots on the ground. And so when you say you had just said not to sell cull cows, tell me, am I getting this right? What you mean by that is sell them before they become considered cull cows.
Correct. Not selling cull cows means you don't have cull cows on the place.
Gotcha.
If I have a cull cow, I want to sell her because I want to get something out of her, right? But yes, the idea is that we should be selling them long before they are in the cull category.
Wow, that is so different from what we're told down here.
I agree. Totally.
Yay. Okay.
It's true everywhere, Danny. It's not just you. And I know Wally's champing at the bit to talk about this.
Okay, thank you.
Danny, what I'd like you to do is you have the gentleman with the PhD explain to you how. Show me the numbers. I've asked people, show me the numbers, and nobody shows up with the numbers,
Right.
And I can show you where if you keep a cow till she's 8 years old, she's gonna eat your lunch most of the time.
And I can show you cases with the names and addresses and the details deleted that show where people have changed to this strategy and have added millions of dollars to their equity.
Wow,
and when you compare that to their prior decade of trends, it's very, very different.
Mm-hmm. And also at the beef cattle short courses, they asked one time the whole room, and they said, "What is the biggest cost in your operation?" And I said, "Labor," and they said no, and they said it was replacement cow cost, and I think it's because nobody pays themselves, so I don't know, but they said annual cost, and so maybe I just don't understand it fully, but.
No, but labor's in the top 3 and cow replacement is in the top 3. So you're not that far off.
Okay.
Most people don't pay labor. That's the difference. But if you really labor,
that's right.
All right. Anybody got a number for me when we subtract 30,000 from 60,000? Oh my goodness. And it's not even 30. Okay.
Yeah, your numbers are wrong.
just use the right-hand column. Pretend it's, or do whatever you want. Josh, what do you come up with?
I think we're at plus 220.
Say it again.
Plus 220 per head, 22,000.
Okay. Josh, is that all right?
That's what I got.
Okay, good.
Notice
on the next slide. I can't wait. Whatever. I used the math that was on there. You get the idea. Now our replacement cost is positive. That's the most important thing here. Okay. I don't care if it's off by $40 or $100. If one number is negative and one number is positive, it's a huge change. This is a $400 change compared to one of the scenarios we looked at last in the other scenario. Okay. $400 per cow change from negative 200 to positive 200. And I apologize for the quality of my slide preparation. Okay. Are any of these numbers terribly unreasonable? So could you purchase a replacement or keep a replacement heifer for $1,500? Wally, the example you had with Kim's deal, he literally did just that, right? We did something very similar. Sold a cow in the mid 2000s, bought a replacement in the mid 1000s. We had a customer a month or two ago, sold a bunch of cows for $2,950 and bought back replacements for $1,400. Same type, same kind. This is not trading good Angus cows for Corianis. Okay. This is controlling for quality and only dealing in quality. We're talking good, mountain, intermountain type range cows. All right. Again, I asked you earlier if you could withstand a $120 improvement in your situation. Can you withstand a $400 improvement in your situation? Because the 120 is only getting it to 0. This makes it actually positive. All right. I hear new RFP people and people who've taken Bud's and Wally's and Doug's schools talk about the fact that they got to get out of cows. The cow thing is not profitable. I mean, no insult to anyone. Wally's shown you a bunch of examples. I've shown you examples in the past. The cow business is not the problem. You're doing it wrong. And I don't mean to be insulting, but if you are not profitable in the cow business, it's not because of the cow business. When we look at our gross margins, oftentimes we see bad numbers. The average or your current situation is generally not the potential. Now, any of us that have been in the cow business for a while, there are years that are not as kind as others. Is that fair, Wally?
Correct.
Okay. But on average, year in and year out, and if we look over a 10 or even 5-year cycle, the cow business can be fantastically profitable. Here, if we take the last 5 years before markets ran up, the sell by within a breeding context was very, very profitable. Works very much the same way in sheep. Okay, now, one thing that my wife always asks me is, you just got those calves or those cows to where they're really humming and doing well. Why in the world would you sell them? This requires a very, very different mindset. When an animal gets good, right, or gets to a point where they're really worth a lot, my job is to get rid of it and to pick up another, to replace it with one of similar type, but that has more potential. Okay, so we are constantly buying undervalued things that have potential and selling the things that have realized the potential to other people that value that more than we do. The idea that we sell a prime of her life, really good quality cow to someone else and take their money for it is a female seed stock operation, right? If I'm selling my best 5-year-old cows to someone else, this is not a discount product. I am not haggling about this product. This is the best animal I have. I want top dollar, and I'm going to use the term market here, and I mean a slightly different type of marketing than sell by marketing. I mean like website and presentation and video quality. This is not joking around selling these gals on Craigslist most of the time. This is doing a really good job of packaging them, presenting them, and getting them into a sale or into an environment where they're going to sell really well, because I want to collect as much as I can with those. Now, when we change to a situation like we talked about in like the model I put up before, where we're selling everything that's 5 years or older, or let's say we're selling all our 5- and 6-year-olds and keeping a much younger herd, what has to change in our operation to make that possible? First thing most people say is, oh my goodness, I don't want to calve that many heifers. And depending on how you calve heifers, that absolutely could be true. I'm incredibly lazy and really sort of a bad steward of things. So I prefer a later calving heifer that's going to calve on green grass. She's going to be turned out on pasture and she's going to be checked occasionally. If we are in Wyoming and calving in February, that doesn't work, right? There's got to be good pasture. There's got to be good water. There's got to be adequate space. And a lot of times that takes care of most calving problems. If we're in South Dakota and calving these gals in March during a blizzard, they need help. But if we're going to do this at volume and at scale, we really need to make our heifer and our young cows, we have to do the things in our management that make their chance of success very, very high. And I would argue that this changes pretty much everything about the rest of our operation, especially in the north, where this means that we are calving later. If we're trying to make our heifer calving easier, that often means that, unlike in the South, we're not marketing bred cows in the late fall and early winter, but we're often marketing those in the late winter and early spring. So when I do my calculations for how much it costs me to get that cow sold, I include weaning that calf, let's say in early November, or maybe as late as early November, early December, and then keeping that cow until March when a good market for true May calving cows shows up. Torrington over the years has changed dramatically. There are good markets for spring calving cows. Bud Williamson, I don't think does terribly well on May calving cows in November, but he does really well with them in February. We had a number of people this year sell May calving cows in February and March, and those cows, we had cases where, cows in the high 2000s sold within a day through Williamson or through, who's the outfit there in Nebraska? Oh, come on now. I'm going to forget their name. Do you know what I'm talking about, Wally? Tyler's.
No, I don't.
Okay. There's another really
Wheeling
good
cow
outfit
traders.
there's another good outfit in Nebraska. I've sold cows through them. They did great for me. This also might change so obviously it changes our heifer program. Sorry, go ahead, Samantha.
You're talking about Berkey?
No, I'm talking about friends of Tyler's. Yeah.
Okay.
And why can't I think of their name? Right Livestock in Nebraska. They're another one that they sell a pretty good volume of high quality bred cows. Tyler's the one that introduced me to them. Probably it might change some of our grass management and our feeding strategy. If I am selling a cow in March, I don't want her to look like she's roughed through the winter. I want her to look like a cow ready to go to the sale, or at least a cow suitable for my market. What do I have to change about my people? So again, I mentioned my wife and her aversion to selling good cows. There are a lot of employees in this world that when you tell them you're going to, double your number of heifers and sell all the good cows, they're going to freak out. You've got to sort of walk this through in a way that makes sense to everybody. And you may change your processing. When you are marketing cows, they're just like when we're marketing calves. Sometimes we give shots to actually prevent disease. Sometimes we give shots because we want to fit into the VAC 45 program on Spear. Same with cows. You want to know your market. You want to know what people want. You want to know what is of high value to them. Cool. I think that's it. Any questions, thoughts?
John, I would first want to congratulate you on paying attention in Orange Beach to the strategy. Go back one slide.
You bet.
So you used the most
This is an
important
awesome question.
strategy there.
Yes.
Right? And it totally changes the mindset. And then this is a really good example of a where to play choice that I never thought of, right? You're still doing cow calf, but you're not choosing to win on the playing field of calves. You're choosing to win on the playing field of premium breds.
Correct.
Yeah. How you do it is that laundry list you got in your second point there.
Yeah. We all like to talk about seed stock from the bull only side. To my mind, the female side is incredibly powerful and actually has the potential to generate way more revenue. Because a bull for me generates no cash flow until I sell him. A cow can support herself most of the way until she is sold. So she is generating positive cash flow while she is appreciating. A bull is only incurring costs while he is appreciating. And the number of cows I can keep and turn into a premium product is way higher than the number of bulls I can keep. So if you're any sort of good, you know, you hear these bull guys are like, oh, I have 50 cows and I sell, you know, 27 bulls a year. Like, I guarantee half your bulls are garbage, right? And no insult to anybody in the bull business, but, you know, if you have 100 cows and you sell 10 bulls, you have a much better chance. I, as the buyer, have a much better chance of getting a good quality bull out of that because there's been some culling. They're not all 10s in spite of what we like to think. But cows, a lot of cows are good cows.
I might have to take exception to that one there, John.
I love it.
I
Good.
feel like that was the bait.
You can do higher percentages, but I mean it makes sense, right? If you have bigger numbers and you're culling more, right? You're getting closer to what you really want, right? Now, AI and a number of other things can get you a lot closer, a lot faster. But
I mean,
it's harder to do. Is that fair?
I mean, to be fair, there's a reason why we had run Red Angus bulls behind our Charlotte cows.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yep. If any of you are interested in Charolais cattle, Tyson has some really beautiful ones to sell.
What color calves are those with the Red Angus bull?
They're usually some form of tan. It depends on genetics and all of that. Some pretty dark red, some that are pretty close to white. So it just varies. But pink noses all the way.
Love it. Okay, what else?
John, I have a question, and I'm just
You
going to
bet.
go ahead and y'all are going to just see how little I know about all this. But so when it went back to the breeding folks, you know, they always say down here, you need to get them bred so they calve at 2. Now,
Yep.
I'm not the only one who runs into this, but we can get them to calve at 2. We can't get them to breed back. So
Yep.
the question a lot of times that we have raising them on the farm is, do we just wait till they're 3 and we miss that? And and this is with Wally, I want to know the numbers, because do we wait till they're 3, or do I push their nutrition so hard as a long 2-year-old, or going into 3 and they're trying to have their second or conceive their second, do I push their nutrition? Well, that's higher feed cost. Or do I just wait till they're 3 and they've just had more time to mature? Has anyone done this, or do you know anywhere where there's like comparison numbers on that?
Yeah,
Do they
it's
have to calve at 2?
right. For the rest of you, Danny's in Georgia. This is a huge problem in the Southeast. And there are a few pockets in the West. It's a big problem in Nevada too. This is a serious challenge. So one group of people have solved that by, not breeding them until they're a 2-year-old, right? To calve as a 3. Others have gone ahead and upped the feed so that they get, maybe you don't worry about so much as a heifer calf, but you get her rebred. I am a fan right now of, once a cow is in the program, once she's bred the first time, I really want her to stay. So if that means I have to supplement nutrition to get that second pregnancy in place, I'm going to do that. Wally touched on something that's really important, which is a cull open heifer is really not a cull, right? A lot of times the difference in price is small or none. I think right now it's spread out about as much as it does. It's, probably $500 or even $1,000 in some cases. But a lot of times, 2 years ago, the value of a feeder heifer was basically exactly the same as the value of a bred heifer, maybe even $100 more.
Yeah.
Depending on the region of the country you're in. But when you're in drought, for example, pregnant heifers are worth less than a feeder heifer. But that said, a 3-year-old, an open 2 coming 3, right? So let's assume that we preg check in November, December. If we're a spring calving herd, right? We preg check in December. So that's a coming 3-year-old. She's now open. As a heiferette, she is worth a little more to feed, right? So instead of getting 80 cents a pound for her, you might get $1.10, but she's still massively discounted compared to the bred animal. So once she's pregnant and has a calf and is going to be in the program, I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm going to try to take special care of her so that she becomes a 4, so that she becomes a 5. And if that means I have to put extra feed in, I think it's worth it. Wally, do you have argument with that?
I won't argue that. Another thing is if, you know, if she comes up open with 3, you got 6 months worth of feed to put in her, and not now all Shazam, she's being bred. She will probably breed, you understand what I'm saying? And you just sell her.
Yeah.
Just sell it. And that was one thing I thought about my opens is because we have 2 calving seasons down here. And so one that misses my calving season could be sold to the neighbor who fall calves.
Yep.
Yep. And I would only let them move once. Right. So
Right.
a 12-month
Yes.
postpartum interval is what we're shooting for. If we're 16 once, that's okay. If we're 16 twice, we're a problem.
Yeah, any
Yep.
animal that comes up open has to produce cash flow within the next 6 or 7 months. You're, in other words, you sell her, period.
Yep.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. That's a great question. And again, the Southeast is notorious for that. There are a few other pockets of the country that have that same problem. What other questions?
I've got something. What are your thoughts on moving cows to a better market? Physically moving them out of your region to a different market, to a much better market.
One thing,
Pros and
Josh, you better understand the rules and the culture. I mean, where are you located at?
I'm in Vermont, so I'm as far away as possible from anybody.
And you know, just like I tell people, you know, if you load up a cow in Oklahoma and send her to either northern Kansas where they got really good cow sales, or Nebraska, I mean, they stick out like sore thumbs. They're just different. Same way with Florida cows, they just are different, you know, and you need to understand the rules and the culture and stuff. So, and now, like if you're in Vermont, you know, and there's a better market in Virginia or something like that, you could probably do that. I mean, you know.
I think oftentimes, and again, Wally, argue with me if we're wrong here, oftentimes we're best to stay reasonably local with our buying and selling and move our money to different regions of the country.
Yes.
So if you can
It's
buy and
easy to
sell
ship a
cows
check.
in Vermont, yeah, if you can buy cows in Vermont, sell them in Vermont, and then and if you want to work in a better market, go take your money to Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, you know, whatever's Virginia, whatever is appealing. It's a lot, you know, I can ship a check for, I don't know what a stamp costs, 29 cents or 49 cents, whatever, but
Well, it's been a while since you did a stamp, huh?
well, all I do is they don't ever, they're non-committal now on stamps. They don't tell you how much it costs. What does a stamp cost? 50 cents? I have no idea, but it's cheap. It's
I
not
think
like
it's
$6
$7.
a mile. Okay. Sorry. It's not $6 a mile.
Yeah, well, when you break that down price per pound though for the check, that postage is pretty
Quite
expensive.
high. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. It's just not very many pounds. Awesome. What other questions?
Wally, you had said we were talking about if I let an open cow have another chance and go into a different breeding season. You said maybe, but she still has to produce cash flow. Did you say within that 12-month period?
Well, the way I look at it, okay, if a cow comes up open, you know, what you need to do is carry her to her best place, and her best place would be 3rd stage, ready to calve. You understand what I'm trying to say, Danny? And so
Yeah.
just, you know, spend the 6 months or whatever, 7 months of feed. She is not going to cost much to run because she's dry and stuff. And then take her to the best place, and then she needs to produce cash flow to pay for stuff.
And I think what that stands in contrast to, Wally, is a lot of people prig check, find out they're open, haul them to the sale like the next day.
Yep.
And that is sometimes we have to do that because we're in a feed crunch or a logistical problem, etc. but much better is to actually make a plan to market your opens that doesn't include just hauling them to the sale the day after you break check. That's not much of a plan. That's very reactive. That's not terribly proactive.
See, to me, for people that live in real ranch country, whenever a calf is cut back on shipping day, and whenever a cow is called open, that rancher just wants to get the hell rid of them because they're
Correct.
holes and they're cuts, and to me, it's a great opportunity too.
Back to your extension guy, Danny, you mentioned that you make a bunch of money off, how did he say it? You make a bunch of money from culls? Is that roughly what he said?
Yeah, he said that they're a big part of farm cash flow.
Okay, so one of the things I learned from Burke Teichert is that they are a big part, but it's in converting them from culls, right? So again,
Yeah.
it is a cull animal when she's blind, lame, open, right? Poor, about to die, etc. She is not a cull if she has fallen out of your program, gotten open, you've rebred her, and now you're selling her as a fall calver. Now, she may not be a premium product right then, but she's a darn good one a lot of the time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I don't think they go that far in what they tell people. I think it's pretty confusing for folks.
They don't live on the checks. That's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
They get paid either way. Other questions? Awesome. Okay.
It's just,
Daniel.
on one of the first slides, Wally showed the livestock inventory versus price. And I think I might have noticed on the left scale, it was like 29 to 31 in between that range. And so maybe if you look at it, it seemed like it's falling more than it really is. Like,
which one was that, Daniel?
Like maybe the second slide you showed. And
on the second
people are
slide of the whole
expecting
presentation.
I think so. One of the first ones.
Share your screen when you get a chance, will you?
Anything for you, John. Okay, there we are now. Okay.
Was it the market summary one, Daniel, over the 10-year period?
Something like that. I think so. Yeah. Showing
this one.
Like,
is this one, Daniel?
Not that one.
One before, I think. This one.
Yeah,
and
that
what were you
one.
saying? Yes. What about it?
Oh, on the left scale, it's going from 28 to 32. It's not like from 0 to 32.
Oh,
so like
that
little.
Yeah, this is million head of cattle that we have on inventory.
Correct. Yeah. So it does not go to 0, right? It stays in that roughly in that range. And I don't think there's anything magical about that range per se, other than that's sort of the historical. Yep. So we talk about being lower than it's been in X number of years.
And how much does actual inflation like move this up or down? And like,
that's a great question. I would say
and how long is this gonna last? Is it gonna be like last time again, or maybe it'll go a little longer this time? Or
well, just like Daniel, it doesn't matter. What you need to do is every day you sell the overvalued and keep the undervalued, and just always be prepared for the downturn. I mean, it's always.
Yeah, we can spend an incredible amount of time, and I listened to a wonderful podcast this last week where there was a lot of talk about predicting the patterns and the cycles, blah blah blah. It's not hard to get the predictions wrong. The important thing is let's not spend our time predicting. Let's just generate cash flow at each turn and continue making this thing work. Because Wally showed the example of, walking down that cow herd during a big, 50% drop in the market and generated positive cash flow the whole time. Okay, let's wrap this up. Thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate it. I'll hang out for a couple of minutes. If there are any additional questions, anything we need to talk about, it is wonderful to see you all. Thank you very much for coming. We are going to visit again the third week of the month. So that will be the third Thursday of the month. So we're in April. In May, that is going to be the 16th. And next time we're going to talk about a little magic ratio we've been playing with called the Kiyosaki ratio. We have one or two more sessions on gross product, and then we're going to move into some other topics. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, I would obviously love to hear them. We have a YouTube channel where all of these videos are uploaded to. You can access them on the recordings on our website or through the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Ranch Right LLC. The website is ranchrightlllc.com. Wally Olson teaches marketing courses where this content is taught regularly. I've said before, our most profitable customers implement this, Wally's system of cow herd management with a ranching for profit sort of background. So they have the ranching for profit principles firmly in place, and then they add to that the sell by marketing component and generate a lot of really fantastic profit. We look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you very much. We'll talk.
Very good. I will see you, Haskell, and everybody. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thanks, John
Thank you,
and
Wally.
Wally.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.